Exposed, the sinister secrets found below level 27 in Area 51 that will haunt humanity forever. In the quiet suburb of Pine Hollow, darkness draped the sunlit streets, concealing secrets that would drive Sarah Jenkins to the brink of madness. She was just a weary single mother, navigating late shifts at the diner when the phone rang at odd hours. With each ring, dread coiled tighter around her heart. An unknown number flashed on her screen, and she scoffed, thinking it was just a prankster. But then the voice came through, smooth as silk yet laced with malice, sharing eerie details about her life, the color of the curtains that fluttered in her living room, the way Kyle snickered during his video games, the time she forgot to lock the back door. A chill raced down her spine. As the days unfurled, the whispers of fear echoed in her mind. Flickering streetlights cast elongated shadows, unnerving silhouettes flitted by her window during the bleakness of night. Sarah dismissed it, attributing the unease to her exhaustion. But when Mr. Thompson's cat, Fluffy, vanished without a trace, and gossip around the neighborhood began buzzing about missing pets, the shadow of something sinister took new form. Kyle, her teenage son, passed late nights in video game worlds, oblivious to the trembling pulse of danger creeping closer. The police, simply overwhelmed, dismissed Sarah's sweeping fears as classic overreactions of a working mother, if they even listened at all. She felt the weight of mistrust swirling like a storm inside her, a smoldering ember that grew dangerously hot. One night, exhausted from an early shift, she rushed home under a blanket of anxiety. The door was ajar, a silent scream on the wind, unsettling her as she stepped into the threshold of her sanctuary. "Kyle!" she called, voice quaking with unbridled fear. Ignoring the quiet hum of her heart, she raced past the frightened house, searching for a glimpse of safety, but finding only an eerie absence, she barreled into the living room, the silence wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Her eyes locked onto Mr. Thompson, standing too close to Kyle, a benign smile twisted into something sinister in the flickering shadows. Her gut clenched. "What are you doing?" Words grazed her lips with desperation, the familiar fabric of life unraveling at the seams. "You need to know the truth, Sarah," he murmured, his voice a threadbare whisper that sent rivulets of ice coursing through her veins. "Pine Hollow has secrets." As he leaned in, his breath a tortured rumble, Sarah felt her reality begin to shift, cracked by implications that wrapped around her throat like a noose. Behind him loomed whispers of children, shadows woven into the tapestry of community lore. As he let loose the terrible tale of missing kids, of things lurking within the darkened corners of their lives, adrenaline hardened in her bloodstream. Outside, the sky pulsed with a distant light, a harbinger of doom that was coming so close she could taste it. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The tension cracked between them, a taut elasticity stretching towards breaking. "How many others?" she whispered, a defeat clinging to her voice. The unthinkable hung heavy in the air. Moments raced by like fevered nightmares. Her mind swirled with terror, the children, the shadows, the lights flickering like desperate cries for help. As she backed away, Kyle's voice shattered the rift. "Mom?" It echoed, a lifeline, breaking through the haze of horror, but Sarah realized too late, in this game, trust was an illusion, and the dark tendrils of terror twined around their lives with a vice grip. The hidden truths of Pine Hollow loomed, just beneath the surface, nudging at the door of their once safe lives. How long before they, too, would vanish into the night? "Mom!" Kyle's voice echoed again, pulling Sarah from the brink. Panic clawed at her chest as she tore her gaze from Mr. Thompson, who only smiled wider, his eyes glimmering with something like delight, or was it hunger? "Stay back!" she shouted, her heart racing as she placed herself protectively between Kyle and the man she once thought harmless. Her palms were clammy, and fear seeped through her fingers like water. Kyle's expression shifted, confusion transforming into alarm. "Why do you look so scared?" he asked, glancing between her and Mr. Thompson. "Stay away from him," Sarah shrieked, her breath quickening. "He knows bad things." "I just want to help," Mr. Thompson drawled, twirling a finger in the air as though dismissing her fears. "The secrets of this town run deep. Children they're taken, Sarah. You're better off knowing, trusting me. This is a safe place to talk." "Safe?" She spat, her voice rising, rattling around the dim-lit room. "You think this is safe?" Kyle's brows knitted together, and the silence of the room thickened. Outside, the wind howled, rattling branches against the window as if echoing her chaos. "Mom, what's going on?" The world felt surreal, like the shifting shadows were alive, creeping closer with malicious intent. The light outside flickered like a dying ember, and Sarah could almost taste the damp, metallic odor of fear in the air. She took a deep, shuddering breath, considering the fleeting figures in the dark who had begun to haunt her waking moments. Could Mr. Thompson be involved? Had her desperate night visions come trailing behind him like a smirking ghost? "Listen, Kyle," she said urgently, "we have to leave. Right now." But the glint in Mr. Thompson's eyes darkened. "You're making a mistake, Sarah." His expression frayed at the edges, shifting from affable to dangerously serious. "You don't want to ignore this. You need to understand what truly hunts in the shadows." "No, I need to protect my son." Determination surged through her as Sarah took a step back, eyes burning into those of Mr. Thompson. "If you're a part of this, I swear enough," he barked, the gentility vanishing like thin smoke. "Each night, they're drawn to the children of Pine Hollow. Just beyond your street, a shadow stirs, awakened by the fear you all harbor. I can help you if only you'd let me." Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the hallway, jerking both mother and son. Her heart raced. "What was that?" "I don't know." "Stay behind me," Sarah said, positioning herself like a shield. The thudding grew louder, rapid, as if something was pounding against the walls, desperate to get inside. Mr. Thompson's demeanor morphed in an instant. Fear glinted in his eyes, mirroring the terror that was now weaving around them like a tightening noose. "We need to go now," he urged, voice clipped and panicked. As the noise crescendoed, the shadows of the room danced chaotically around them, and in that moment of paralyzed fear, dread coiled tighter around Sarah's throat. But then, the call of the darkness transformed, shifting from a dull vibration to something sharper, louder. She could see clawed hands pressing against the walls, and she understood, they weren't alone. "Mom, what's happening?" Kyle squeaked, eyes wide as saucers. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson lunged for the door and twisted the handle frantically. "They're coming. We have no time." The door rattled ominously, its surface warping under unseen pressure, and the reality of their situation hit like a punch to the gut. In a heartbeat, the eerie truth collided with her like a freight train. The threat wasn't just a distant whisper anymore. It was here. What choice would she have to make? Before the door flung open, tearing them from their planned escape, Sarah's mind raced. The decisions ahead could change everything. Reality hung upon razor's edge. Under that suffocating weight of terror, she heard another whisper echoing a chilling promise, "They've always been here waiting for you." Moments felt like hours as Sarah slowly turned toward the darkened hallway where the sound rampaged, the shadows now swirling like a violent storm. Every instinct in her body screamed for her to flee. But she hesitated, torn between the urge to protect Kyle and a haunting curiosity to learn the dark truth that Pine Hollow had kept buried for far too long. What lay waiting for them in that darkness? The door smashed open. A gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering lights. Sarah shielded Kyle as darkness surged around them like a tidal wave, choking off every hint of safety. "Go! Now!" Mr. Thompson's voice echoed, sounding distant and distorted, as if he were trapped in a different realm. Yet, he didn't move with them. Instead, he stood frozen at the threshold, eyes wide, watching the oncoming storm with a mix of awe and horror. What's out there? Kyle whispered, gripping Sarah's sleeve tightly. I don't know. She couldn't spare a glance back. Her instincts urged her to move, to push forward toward the only path left. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a frantic drum. Out in the hallway, shadows flickered and twisted. Shapes darted at the corners of her vision, silent but menacing. With every step deeper into the darkness, her stomach knotted tighter. A sob might escape her, but she pushed it down. One look at Kyle's terrified face reminded her what was at stake. Keep your eyes on me. Don't look away, she whispered fiercely. He nodded, his pupils dilating with a mix of fear and trust. Suddenly, an ear-splitting shriek pierced the air, and the temperature plummeted. Sarah's breath came out in quick, white puffs, puffing out into the now frozen wasteland of the hallway. She knew they couldn't linger. Not here. Not anywhere. Mom! Kyle shouted as she pulled him along, fleeing the wailing echo. But from behind, she sensed the dark presence gaining ground. It felt like an eddy, circling closer, wrapping around her ankles, trying to pull her back. Faster. They darted around the corner, and a dull glimmer caught her eye, the exit sign above the door at the far end. The light seemed so isolated, so almost divine in a world heaving with terror. But as they rushed toward it, the floor vibrated under their feet, a low thrumming that reverberated deep into her bones. From beneath them, claws snaked out, scraping the wood with a jagged sound that sent shudders through Sarah's body. She gasped, feeling the presence claw at her psyche, as if it had a voice. Stay with us, no. She cried out, tearing her focus away, forcing herself to drown out the whispers that called to her from beyond the shadows. They sprinted, desperation fueling their flight. The exit loomed closer, but the air thickened, almost solidifying around them, blurring their chance of escape. Mom! Kyle's voice cracked, fear bleeding into each syllable. Panic surged anew through her veins like wildfire. Hold on. She rasped, her eyes wide. We're almost there. Just as her fingers brushed the cool handle of the door, a figure leaped from the dark, an apparition of swirling shadow and malice with eyes glowing like dying stars. It lunged for them, aiming for Kyle. No! The scream tore from her throat, overriding everything else. She yanked him back just in time, feeling the cold fingers of the creature graze her cheek. They stumbled back, crashing against the wall. But that moment, as heart-stopping as it was, brought clarity. The fear of losing her son ignited something deep within, a primal instinct to fight back. Get ready! She shouted, rising to her feet, determination surging like a beacon. Mom, what should I do? Kyle's voice trembled, but his eyes now burned with a fierce light. Trust me. We're leaving. With one swift motion, she pushed the door open, sunlight spilling into the darkness like salvation. It illuminated a narrow path that had been hidden beneath layers of shadow. But the figure lurked, unyielding, waiting for them to falter. Something gnawed at Sarah's mind as they stepped into the light. What had they just escaped from? Pressing forward, the feeling of being watched bore down on her. Were they truly safe? Wait! Kyle urged, pulling her back as he noticed something glimmering near the threshold they'd crossed. With dread creeping up her spine, Sarah turned to see what Kyle had spotted, a small, metallic key, engraved with the ominous numbers 27. Just then, the world around them twisted, shadows closing in once more. And a voice echoed chillingly, the key is just the beginning, what could it unlock? The sunlight was a blazing contrast to the darkness they had just fled. It felt unreal, almost like a dream. Sarah blinked hard, trying to shake off the suffocating memories of what had chased them. The key in Kyle's hand glinted ominously, and the sun's warmth felt too warm, a deceptive comfort. "Mom, what does it mean?" Kyle's small voice trembled, drawing her gaze. The terrified light in his eyes jerked her back to the dire reality they faced. "I don't know," she admitted, the words heavy on her tongue. "But we need to find out." Around them, the area seemed deserted, eerily quiet. She could hear their own breaths echoing in the stillness, punctuated by the distant thrumming of machinery that pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the ground. "Should we go back?" Kyle whispered, looking toward the door where shadows still flickered menacingly. "No." The word shot out of her mouth like a bullet. "We can't go back." Just then, a sharp sound echoed from behind, causing both of them to spin around. The door slammed shut with a resounding thud, as if something had barreled against it from the other side. "Did you hear that?" Kyle's voice rose in pitch, fear crawling up his spine. Sarah nodded, her gut twisted with dread. They were not alone. A clatter of footsteps sounded in the distance, and her heart raced. She grabbed Kyle's arm, pulling him back against the wall. "We have to hide. Quick." They dashed behind a massive piece of machinery, the shadows clung to them like fog as they crouched low. The smell of oil and dust hung thick in the air, mingling with the fear that stank of sweat. A group of figures appeared, dressed in dark uniforms, faces obscured by helmets. They moved swiftly, their voices low and urgent, too far to make out but close enough for Sarah to feel a tremor in the air. "Everyone is accounted for, but the breach is still a concern," one voice buzzed through her, chilling her bone deep. "The experiment is compromised." "What experiment?" Kyle whispered, eyes wide. "I don't know," she breathed back, squeezing his hand tightly. The tension thickened as the figures approached the very door they had escaped from. They stopped, murmuring to one another, their gloved hands gesturing as they appeared to check equipment. Sarah's heart raced at the thought of being discovered. Sweat trickled down her spine, a bitter reminder of their reality. If they found out they were here, everything her son's life, their escape was at stake. "Keys will lead them," another voice hissed, the words dripping with an ominous tone. "They must be the key to containment. We can't let them escape." Containment? The word pounded in her head, adding a new layer to her terror. They weren't just running from dark shadows or creatures. There was something larger, something that required them to be contained. The figures turned abruptly, their eyes scanning the area. Sarah clenched her teeth, fighting to stifle her panic. "Go, go." She pulled Kyle with her, escaping from their hiding spot just as the group began to move away again. They slipped into another corridor, with flickering lights overhead barely illuminating their path. "Mom, what do we do now?" Kyle's voice shook. His question echoed in her mind. What now? The key burned heavily in her pocket, a weight she couldn't ignore. But where did it fit in this twisted maze? As they moved forward, the corridor twisted and turned, branching out into darkness, echoing whispering voices that seemed almost alive. "Find them, unleash the secrets, run." Sarah hissed, pushing Kyle ahead of her. They still had to keep moving, but where was their destination? The machinery roared to life around them, metal grinding, sparks flying. In this trembling heart of darkness, they needed to uncover the truth, but they were racing towards something they barely understood. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a door marked restricted access. The sight sent chills down her spine. What if it's a trap? Kyle whispered, fear flaring in his eyes. What if it's the answer? Her heart hammered wildly, and she turned the small key in her hand, revealing the numbers. But as they stood there, the shadows thickened around them, and an unsettling voice sliced through the air, full of malice. "You shouldn't have come, it's too late for choices." With dread pooling in her stomach, they glanced at each other, knowing their only choice might be to confront what lay beyond the door. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. What secrets awaited them inside? The door creaked open, revealing a hazy interior that swallowed them in a shroud of darkness. An unsettling chill rushed over Sarah as she stepped inside. She squinted into the gloom, searching for any signs of life. The air was thick with a metallic scent that clung to her skin. Mom, Kyle's voice trembled beside her. It was barely a whisper now, like a fragile thread hanging in a storm. "Stay close," Sarah replied, wrapping an arm around her son, pulling him deeper into the unknown. The hinges of the door groaned loudly as it swung shut behind them, sealing off the promise of light and safety. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with stark white letters that sent a chill through her spine. Experiment A, Experiment B. The rhythm of her heartbeat echoed in her ears, punctuated by the low hum of machines that thrummed in sync, like the heartbeat of something larger, something alive. "What is this place?" Kyle's voice quivered, and she could feel the tremor in his small frame. "I don't know," she breathed, forcing her eyes to adjust. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously, casting erratic shadows that danced and lurked. As they moved deeper, Sarah's gaze fell on a glass wall. Behind it, she caught glimpses of bizarrely shaped objects suspended in containers filled with a viscous liquid. They looked like twisted remnants of flesh, with wires wrapped around like vines, pulsing as if they had a heartbeat of their own. What is that?" Kyle's innocent question turned her stomach. Suddenly, a loud clang erupted from the far end of the room, causing them both to jump. Sarah's stomach dropped, a cold sweat breaking out over her skin as she instinctively pulled Kyle against her. The sound echoed like a gunshot, jarring in the deathly silence. "Go! We need to find another way out," she hissed urgently. They scurried past the grotesque display, and as they reached the end of the room, they spotted a series of flashing screens. Rows of data scrolled down, each line more unsettling than the last. Subject 34 LV units contained, containment breach imminent. What is happening? Kyle's eyes widened, panic bubbling beneath the surface. "I don't know, but it can't be good," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Just then, the lights flickered more violently. From behind them, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed through the chamber, deliberate and heavy. Figures emerged from the shadows, their stony expressions highlighted by the blood-red glow of emergency lighting. "Get to the containment zone. They're getting out," a voice shouted, filled with urgency and fear. Before Sarah could react, a chill swept through the room, and the glass wall began to crack. She glanced back, terror filling her senses. Something inside stirred, pressing against the glass as if it yearned for freedom. "Mom!" Kyle cried, eyes wide with horror. "We have to move!" Sarah shouted. She grabbed Kyle's hand tightly and pulled him toward the exit, the pounding of their footsteps drowning out the horrified screams echoing from behind. As they sprinted past the consoles, an alarm blared, red lights flashing like a warning signal. The walls rattled, deep-seated growls reverberating from beyond the cracking glass. Whatever had been contained was no longer satisfied with confinement. They reached the door they had entered through, but it was locked tight now, red lights flashing around the edges. "Mom, it won't open. Stand back!" she yelled, adrenaline surging through her veins. She threw herself against the door, but it wouldn't budge. The rumbling behind them intensified, and the shadows stretched longer, closer, alive with malice. Just as panic crested in her throat, she yanked the key from her pocket, the metal cold against her palm. "Please," she murmured, thrusting the key into the lock. The door shuddered, and between them, a final glimmer of hope flickered before the world behind shattered into utter chaos. What had they unleashed, and would they ever escape? In the throes of panic, she twisted the key, hoping against hope that it wasn't too late. The key turned with an agonizing slowness, grinding against the lock as if it were protesting the impending escape. Time slowed for Sarah, each tick of the second hand echoing in the hollow chamber. Breath caught in her throat, she pushed harder, willing the door to give. The shattering glass erupted behind them, a cacophony that drowned out the alarms blaring around them. Kyle squealed, his grip tightening around her wrist, his smaller hand trembling. She could feel his pulse racing against her skin. It opened. Sarah stumbled through the door, pulling Kyle behind her just as tendrils of darkness poured into the hallway like smoke. The acrid stench of fear overwhelmed her senses, but they had to keep moving. They dashed down the narrow corridor, fluorescent lights flickering intermittently above, throwing erratic shadows that morphed into nightmarish shapes. Every step echoed ominously, a reminder of the chaos they left behind. "Where do we go?" Kyle whimpered beside her, glancing over his shoulder. I don't know." A deafening roar erupted from the facility behind them, a sound so primal it sent bone-deep chills through Sarah. It felt alive, aware, hungry. "Run!" she screamed. Their footsteps pounded against the cold, sterile floor, cutting through the chaos that loomed close behind. Long hallways stretched endlessly on either side, each door locked tightly, mocking their desperate need for escape. Sweat dripped down Sarah's back as she searched for an exit, breathing hard, lightheaded with panic. "Mom! What was that thing?" Kyle gasped when they skidded to a halt in front of a series of sliding doors marked with cryptic warnings. "I don't know, buddy. But we need to find out. Stay close." In a frantic moment of clarity, Sarah spotted a sign near their feet, an exit plan diagram. But it was wildly out of date, with labels warning of emergency gas leaks and biohazard zones. Fear sank in. They were deep within the belly of a beast, completely disoriented. "Mom!" Kyle exclaimed, pointing to a door at the end of the hall, its surface marred with age and wear. Hope flickered in her heart. They sprinted towards it, skin prickling from the sensation of being stalked. As they reached it, a deep growl reverberated through the walls, louder than the alarms, and the ground beneath them trembled. "Please!" Sarah shouted, shoving against the door handle. It clicked and creaked, reluctantly swinging open to reveal a room that looked like a makeshift lab, filled with crumbling equipment and animal cages. But it wasn't the eerie sight that froze them in their tracks. A figure emerged from the corner, cloaked in shadow. Its features were obscured, but glinting eyes locked onto them, piercing through the darkness. "Help us!" Kyle cried, hope mingling with desperation. "We shouldn't be here," the figure rasped, voice grating like metal against rust. "You don't understand what's been unleashed." The words curled ominously in Sarah's mind, the dread sinking deeper. What did they do?" Before the figure could answer, the ground shook violently, and the cacophony of screams from beyond grew louder. The creature in the glass wall from earlier was free, and it was coming for them. "Run! Now!" the cloaked figure shouted. Terror sent spikes of adrenaline through Sarah, instinct overriding fear. Pulling Kyle close, they darted deeper into the lab as haunting echoes reverberated throughout the chamber. "Mom! What about him?" Kyle cried, panic erupting in his voice, but Sarah didn't look back. They burst into another hallway, the air thick with humidity. They could hear it now, heavy footsteps, breathing like a hurricane, as if whatever was unleashed was hunting them. "There's got to be a way out." Sarah gasped, searching frantically for a door or a window, her eyes wild with fear. But tension hung thick. Wherever they turned, it felt like they were only running deeper into a maze of horror. And then, crashing from the shadows, the monstrous figure loomed in front of them, eyes glowing with malevolence. This was only the beginning. Unleashed chaos prowled the halls, and escape felt impossibly distant. "Keep running!" Sarah shouted, as they plunged into the unknown. Sarah's legs burned, muscles screaming as she plunged deeper into the gloom. The corridor twisted and turned, a labyrinth fraught with shadows that seemed to stretch, clutch, and pull her back toward the creature they had narrowly escaped. Kyle's breath was ragged, matching her own, but fear kept them moving. Panic pulsed through her veins like wildfire. They had to escape. "We can't keep running forever, Mom." Kyle's voice cracked. "I'm tired. Just a little longer." She pleaded, forcing herself to stay calm, to maintain control. But inside, doubt clawed at her. The echoing footsteps behind them grew louder, reverberating like thunder in a storm. It was getting closer, it was close enough to feel its breath in the air. Up ahead, a flickering light caught her eye. A door, wedged slightly open, beckoned them with a promise of safety. Sarah darted towards it, yanking the door wide as they stumbled into a small room lined with whispering shadows. A metallic scent hit them immediately, mingling with the dampness. Flicking the light switch revealed a narrow, dimly lit room cluttered with crates and discarded medical supplies. It was the remnants of what had once been a clinic or perhaps a containment area, but now? Just another place to hide. "Mom, I don't think we should be here." Kyle's voice trembled, fear evident in his wide eyes. "Just give me a second." She hurriedly checked the door behind them, locking it with shaking hands. The heavy footsteps reverberated through the wall, drawing nearer. She could almost feel the creature's rage pulsating through the air. Fingers trembling, Sarah turned to scan the room. There had to be another way out. Her heart raced as she caught sight of a small window near the ceiling, too high, but it gave her a glimmer of hope. "Kyle, can you give me a boost? What if it comes in?" he shouted, anxiety filling the space like thick smoke. "Then we'll figure it out together." She forced a confident smile, knowing that confidence was all they had left. Kyle nodded, eyes darting nervously toward the door. She moved quickly, climbing onto his shoulders, every second feeling like an eternity. She pried open the rusty window, heart pounding with every groan of protesting metal. "Come on, come on." Just as she squeezed her body through the narrow gap, she paused. In her peripheral, beneath the doorframe, a shadow flickered. Something passed by, a claw brushing the metal as it circled their hideout like a predator. "Mom!" Kyle squeaked, panic-stricken. "I'm almost there." She rasped, flinging herself through, hitting the ground on the other side with a painful thud. She immediately turned, reaching for Kyle, panic coursing through her body at the thought of him behind that door with the thing, but he hesitated, eyes wide and terrified. "I can't." "Listen to me. You have to." She extended her hand, pleading. "Just jump." The door rattled under the weight of the monster, the intense growl vibrating through the air like an earthquake. "I can't. I want to leave you." Kyle cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You have to. Trust me. I'm right here. I want to let anything happen to you." In that agonizing moment, reality struck. She realized she might lose him. With a deep, trembling breath, Kyle finally sprang into action, launching himself through the window with just enough force. Sarah grabbed him as he landed, fingers wrapping tightly around his small wrist. The room erupted into chaos as the door splintered open behind them. Tearing themselves away from the sight of horror, they dashed away from the lab and out into the cool night air, hearts racing. But relief washed over them for only a split second before realizing they were still trapped. This was just another section of the facility, an extension of their nightmare. The starry sky overhead felt like a distant memory. All she could see were the shadows, the ambience thick with danger. Sarah's heart sank as she heard the monstrous creature's voice roar behind them, dripping with malice. It was taunting them now. "Be careful," Kyle warned, eyes darting left and right as they crept through the area, the landscape feeling foreign and perilous. What else did they unleash? She murmured, dread pooling deep within her gut. They were not alone. Suddenly, a series of distant screams echoed, sending shivers down her spine as fear tightened her chest. What was that? "Mom!" Kyle's cry pierced through the stillness. "Let us go," she said, gripping his hand tighter. Ahead, unfamiliar pathways twisted ominously into the darkness. Shadows moved like living entities, whispers rose above them, promising curses and despair. This was far from over. "Which way?" Kyle asked, a note of panic creeping back into his voice as the screams grew louder. I don't know," Sarah admitted, glancing over her shoulder. The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, a chilling premonition, and just as they were about to make a decision, a chilling laughter echoed through the night, sharp and taunting. In that moment, they stood frozen, realizing they had entered a realm where every choice could lead to doom. The whispers, the screams, they were only the beginning. What did we just stumble into? Answer was the last thing they wanted to hear. Shadows danced around Sarah and Kyle as the laughter faded into silence, leaving an eerie calm behind. The screams had stopped, replaced by a tense stillness punctuated by their own racing hearts. She took a step forward into the darkness, instinct urging her to keep moving. The air felt thick, wrong in a way she couldn't quite define. "Mom, I don't like this," Kyle whispered, gripping her hand tighter. "I know," she breathed, forcing her legs to take another step. "But we have to find a way out." Without warning, a distant thud echoed through the corridor, the kind that reverberated in their bones. Sarah paused, eyes wide, senses on high alert. "Did you hear that?" Kyle nodded, his face pale. "What was it?" She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Just stay close to me ahead," a dim flicker broke the darkness. Cautiously, they moved towards it, the shadows shifting oddly in their periphery. As they approached, the light revealed a makeshift sign above a door, Laboratory 3A. It looked peeling and worn, as if it hadn't been used in ages. "Mom, should we?" Kyle's voice wavered, uncertainty lacing every word. "Just a quick look," she promised, although unease twisted in her stomach. But curiosity gnawed at her, as if whatever lay behind that door could hold answers. Sarah pushed the door open slowly, the creak echoing unnaturally loud in the silence. The room inside was dimly lit, filled with old equipment covered in dust and strange veils that glinted ominously. A large metal table stood eerily at the center, its surface stained and marked, telling tales of horrors long past. "Look at all this stuff," Kyle muttered, stepping inside cautiously. Sarah scanned the room. What were they doing here? A faint buzzing sounded from the corner, drawing her attention. A hulking machine, ancient and rusty, flickered to life, casting an unsettling glow across the room. Kyle jumped back against her, looking terrified. "Shoo, it's okay," she murmured, even though her own heart raced. As if on cue, the machine sputtered and hummed louder, generating a low growl until it finally stabilized. With a sudden lurch, words appeared on a cracked screen: "Confirmation required, Subject 4812, engaging protocol." "What does that mean?" Kyle's voice cracked, eyes darting around as if searching for a way out. "I don't know," Sarah whispered, panic creeping into her voice as she contemplated the implications of the word subject. Suddenly, another noise broke the thick air, a low growl from deep within the shadows. A guttural sound that sent chills racing down her spine. "Mom! What is that?" Kyle cried, backing closer into her side. "I need you to trust me, Kyle," she said, trying to sound brave even as fear coursed through her own veins. "We have to figure out what they were doing here before we." A loud crash resonated from outside the laboratory, cutting her off. It sounded like something huge had been released. They both froze, hearts pounding in unison as the clinic's overhead lights flickered, casting shifting shadows in every corner of the room. In that moment, realization dawned: whatever had been unleashed was here, and it was coming for them. "Run!" Sarah shouted, pulling Kyle toward the door as the growls sharpened, echoing louder, angrier. The darkness seemed alive, ready to swallow them whole. They bolted back into the corridor, breaths erratic. Unfamiliar paths loomed ahead, each choice a step deeper into the nightmare. As they sprinted forward, a shadow loomed behind them, almost humanoid, twisting in and out of their line of sight, filling Sarah with dread. A piercing scream split the air suddenly, sending shockwaves through their fears. "Mom? Where do we go?" Kyle's voice trembled, panic seizing his every word. "I don't know, Kyle. Just run." But the oppressive darkness closed in around them, an unseen force pushing against their backs, heavy and suffocating. As they raced on, the laughter returned, echoing through the hallways. They were not alone, and whatever they stumbled into was eager for company. "Mom!" Kyle cried, slipping slightly against the cold ground as he stumbled. "Stay with me!" Sarah yelled, gripping his hand tightly, and just as they turned a corner, they were met with an enormous door, sealed shut. The sight of it filled Sarah with panic. "There has to be another way," she shouted, heart beating wildly as she searched for an escape. But the ground trembled beneath them. Behind the door, claws scraped against metal, hungry, monstrous, determined to break free. With time slipping away, they had to do something, anything that would keep them alive. "Mom," Kyle whispered, his voice trembling, filled with fear. "What do we do now?" Outside the door, the growls intensified, echoing ferocity and desperation. And the weight of decisions loomed as they stood on the precipice of nightmares. In that split second, Sarah wondered if this was the moment they would be caught. What awaited them on the other side? Would they be the next subjects? All she knew was that they needed to find out before it was too late. Their breaths came in short, desperate gasps as the growls grew closer, each rumble a menacing reminder of what was behind that door. Sarah's heart raced, a wild drum in her chest, drowning out the panic in Kyle's shallow breaths. She scanned the walls, desperate for a lifeline, but ahead of them was only the looming, sealed door, and behind them the darkness that felt almost sentient, watching, waiting. "Mom!" Kyle whimpered, his fingers trembling in her grip. The shadows around them seemed to stretch and curl, threatening to pull them into their depths. "What if it gets us?" A deep scrape echoed from behind the door, nails against metal, raw and primal. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but there was nowhere to run. "Stay quiet, Kyle," she said, leveling a determined gaze at him, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. She didn't want to terrify him further, but their survival depended on more than fear. "We need to think hard." Beside her, the machine continued its low hum, a mockery of calm amidst the frantic noise around them. Suddenly it shuddered, lights flickering erratically, casting the room in waves of electric shadows, revealing fleeting glimpses of horror. Then, the screen blinked again, letters appeared, conquering the darkness, initiating release, please retreat. "Mom, it's talking." Kyle gasped, eyes wide. "What does it mean?" I don't know." She stammered, panic clawing at her throat. "Just stay close." The words felt weak against the growing terror, but she pushed the fear aside. "We need to find another way out. Now." With that, she yanked Kyle toward the other end of the corridor, away from the ominous door. The hallway yawned before them, lit only by flickering emergency lights. Every shadow morphed into something monstrous, each surge of darkness threatening to consume them whole. "Where do we go?" Kyle pleaded, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the door to burst open any second now. "Just follow me," she shouted, her voice breaking the silence. "We have to keep moving." They darted down another corridor, each step echoing in the hollow space. As they ran, another crash resonated behind, louder this time, sending vibrations through the floor. Sarah couldn't look back, she could feel the presence of something monstrous gaining on them. "Mom!" Kyle gasped, nearly tripping over a fallen piece of equipment. She steadied him, fear sharpening her senses. "What if we get trapped? What if it finds us?" "Then we fight back," she said, though her heart sank at the notion. They had no weapons, no defenses, only their instinct and a flickering will to survive. Suddenly, Sarah caught sight of another door, slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning them. "In there!" she commanded, pushing the door open with every ounce of her strength. They stumbled inside, falling against the cold, metal floor. The room was small, lined with shelves full of ominous vials and strange instruments. The very air felt thick and oppressive, as if infused with something sinister. Kyle's eyes darted around, wide with fear. What if it comes in here? What if it finds us? A guttural growl echoed from the hall, reverberating through the room as if to answer him. Sarah's stomach twisted. There was nowhere to hide. Shoo! She hissed, trying to think as she pulled Kyle closer. Dim lights flickered, the walls felt like they were closing in. Her mind raced, searching for anything they could use, the shelves she could see them wobbling slightly. Kyle, can you help me push those over? What? He stammered, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Help me. We need to block the door. With shaky hands, they both scrambled to shove the nearest shelf toward the door, their efforts met with panic and adrenaline. Each scrape and clatter sounded an alarm in her head, but she pressed on. Come on. We can't let it in. As they finished barricading the door, a loud thud sent shivers through her core. What is that? Kyle whispered, inching closer to her. I don't know, she whispered back, trembling. But we need to get out of here now. And then, the lights flickered. Wildly, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat before flashing back on. Standing at the opposite end of the room, shrouded in shadows, was a figure vague yet unmistakably menacing. It raised a clawed hand, fingers elongated and dripping something dark and viscous, a slow, mocking smile spreading across its lips. Subject 4812 confirmed, it hissed, voice creeping into the air like smoke. In that moment, the reality crushed down like a weight. Whatever they had dreaded was here, and it was watching them closely. Run! Sarah screamed, grabbing Kyle's hand, her heart pounding wildly as they dashed toward the only remaining exit, but the figure moved too, closing the distance with an unnatural speed. Would they escape this time? Or was this the end of their twisted chase through the shadows? With adrenaline flooding her system, Sarah propelled herself and Kyle forward, dodging the menacing figure with clawed fingers that reached for them. The taste of fear coated her throat, a bitter reminder that time was running out. Her lungs burned as they sprinted deeper into the dimly lit facility, the ground trembling beneath the reverberating roars behind them. Mom! Where do we go now? Kyle's voice trembled with desperation, and she tightened her grip on his hand, pulling him close. Just keep running. Trust me. Her voice might have quaked, but her resolve remained fierce. They darted through narrow hallways flanked by darkened windows, passing cryptic markings that hinted at experiments long lost to the shadows. Then, light flashed ahead, illuminating an impeccably designed door marked Exit. Hope surged through her as they sprinted toward it, but the fleeting sound of footsteps thundered behind them, the creature growing closer. Hurry! Mom! What if it catches us? Kyle sobbed, his tiny body trembling. Look at me. Just focus on my voice. She urged, forcing herself to project a calm she didn't feel. As they reached the exit, she yanked the door open, heart racing. A surge of cold air rushed over them, a precious clean breath of freedom. They stumbled into a vast open space, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic corridors they had fled. The night sky stretched above them, the stars glittering like long-lost dreams. But it held only a moment's reprieve. They had to keep moving. Where do we go now? Kyle panted, glancing back towards the ominous door they had just escaped. I don't know. We need to get away from here. Mid-sentence, Sarah felt the air shift behind them. A chilling presence beckoned from the shadows of the facility, foreboding and absolute. She turned, heart falling as the figure emerged, towering above, its smile grotesque and wide as it stepped into the light, revealing a face twisted into contemptuous glee. I found you. You shouldn't have escaped so easily. It hissed, voice dripping with malice, winding like smoke. Run! Sarah screamed again, grabbing Kyle and pulling him forward, determined to leave terror behind. They darted across the yard toward the edge of the facility, seeking escape among the shadows of trees, but the laughter rose again, piercing the tranquility of the night. The creature lunged after them, claws scraping the ground as if it was outrunning them in a sickening game. Sarah finally spotted a fence, a barricade to the outside world. They were so close. "Kyle, over here. We can't make it," he yelled. "Yes, we can." She sprinted harder, instinct guiding her, until she reached the fence. She hoisted Kyle over before scrambling through herself, landing heavily but on solid ground. Freedom. But they weren't safe yet. They raced toward the tree line, the sounds of the night swallowing their footsteps. Branches whipped against their legs, the soft rustle of leaves layered over their panting breaths. Far from the looming threat of shadows, Sarah ducked behind a massive oak, heartbeat thundering in her chest. Kyle pressed his small frame against her, trembling as they sought refuge among the thick roots. "Are we safe, Mom?" he whispered. "For now," she replied, wiping sweat from her brow with trembling fingers. But as she fought the urge to crumble, dread pooled in her stomach. Their nightmare was far from over. The shadows of the facility faded behind them, but the weight of secrets lingered, taunting them from beyond the fence. Together, they could confront all the darkness and the truth that lurked just beneath the surface of Pine Hollow. "Whatever they were doing, Kyle, we need to stop it. We can't let anyone else face the monster," Sarah declared, resolve hardening in her voice. "Can we really?" he asked, uncertainty flickering across his eyes. "Yes, we can. We have the key. It can unlock the truth. We will go back, and we will find answers." His gaze bore into hers, fear still etching his features. But then a spark of hope glimmered within those young eyes. "I trust you, Mom," he said. "Then let us take our stand." With determination forged in their shared adversity, Sarah turned towards the darkness from the facility beyond the fence where shadows loomed, and mysteries called. Together, she whispered, feeling the weight of the key in her pocket, the promise of truth pulling them back. Together, they would face whatever lay hidden beneath level 27. Together, they would confront the sinister echoes of the past, unlocking the horrors to protect the futures yet to come. Together, they would not just escape the dark, they would finally expose it. Now rise with them. Subscribe immediately to our channel to ensure you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of backing this channel, so let us light up those notifications and spread the word.